following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hello.
Jack Degraw.
How are you, Ralph?
Time to talk a little Yankee baseball, and I'm happy to have you back at the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Degraw's Yankees, that's what the show is called.
Well, it's nice to be back, Ralph.
Well, first of all, how'd your Thanksgiving go?
Oh, everything's fine.
Okay.
You know, the weather's nice down here. It's finally, got below 80 degrees, and so everything's good down here in Florida.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's have a little hot stove league. First, though, I want to talk about the recent pitching acquisition, and is there more to come?
Well, I think there's a lot more to come. I mean, you have the free agents. They can resign Happ, and they got Corbin and Ballfield. And another thing, there's a Japanese pitcher they're also interested in.
Right.
And I know I'm going to mess up the name, but
what organization is he with?
Well, he's in Japan.
Oh, okay. So they're interested in signing a free agent from Japan. What does that entail? Do they have to put up X number of dollars that goes into a kitty that is non-refundable if they end up not signing him?
Well, I'm not really sure, Ralph, but I believe so, because that's usually the practice with the players coming from Japan. And this kid is represented by, who's that super agent?
Boris.
Yeah. So, that could go, that could be a tough sell, but I've read where he's had a physical and stuff, so he's pretty much ready to go.
Okay. Got to ask you the magic question. Bryce Harper or Mike Trout? Who would you prefer to have?
Well, Mike Trout.
Okay. Harper's younger, and I'm just saying he probably cost them less coming off the year he was coming off of. But notwithstanding, do you think there's a chance of getting Bryce Harper?
Well, I think it would take really a lot, and I think the Angels would just get blasted if they got rid of him, because not only is he a great player, he's like an ambassador for baseball. He's a great person. I mean, he would somebody I'd love to see in Yankee pinstripes. I mean, he would own this. He would own New York, and I think he'd be the face of baseball if he isn't already.
Well, I just got to tell you how nice it is to play in California for these guys. And there's a lot less pressure. The press is a lot more forgiving in California. Some guys are just not Yankee Stadium, New York Yankees, New York Mets. Obviously, guys like Whitson have been intimidated. The guy that comes to mind on the current Yankees that just a big surprise to me, because I saw Sonny Gray pitch in a playoff game. I think he must have been 20, 3 or 4 years ago. And he had a lot of composure. He had a terrific year. I really am disappointed in him from the standpoint of the Yankees, my second team, but nonetheless, I like him a lot now. And do you see them trading him back to Oakland, perhaps?
Well, there was rumors he might go back to the A's, and I can see why the A's would want him, because he's still a young guy, and even though he didn't pitch well at Yankee Stadium last year, but he pitched well on the road, and he's still got a big upside. But one of the things I heard would be Sonny Gray, and the Yankees might try to get back James Caprillion.
Oh, That's a guy coming along in the minors, and wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, because I've seen him a few times down here in spring training and with the Tampa Yankees, and he looked phenomenal. He looked like he was only a year or two away. But you don't know with the Tommy John surgery, but so that's a possibility. Sonny Gray, a lot of teams are interested in him because he's got the potential. He's been a good pitcher, and he can be a good pitcher again.
Okay. He made a very stupid remark. I can't even remember what it was. It was in relationship to either gays or whatever. He just sounded stupid, and that was disappointing.
Well, a lot of times, Ralph, these guys put things on social media, and it could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it could come back and bite them.
I think that's what it was with Sonny Gray. And what impressed me about him through it all, when he was faced with it, he stood up in the clubhouse and said, "This isn't me," to the press. He says, "You ask any of these guys that I play with." I don't really remember what the remark was, but it wasn't. It might have been a 19-year-old Sonny Gray, like you say. They pick up stuff from way back, and nothing on the internet goes away.
Well, he dealt with it the right way. A lot of these guys, they get caught with something, and they try to, deny it. It didn't happen. A lot of times, if you meet things head on, you take responsibility for your actions, and then you just move forward.
Well, this proves once again that baseball is not only a microcosm of life, but life is a microcosm of baseball.
Yeah.
I've said that for a long time, but so often it's a game, but it crosses over into the real world, the real serious world. And I'll give you a good example of that. Manny Machado said some really stupid things, and he acted out in a very stupid way by taking the inside of the base and spiking some guy, or trying to spike some guy. I think that cost him big bucks in the free agent market.
Well, it has. I mean, the Yankees have to really look closely at him, because if they sign him, what kind of effect is he going to have on Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar? I mean, they might look up to this guy and stuff, and who knows, how that could affect their career.
Well, I'm thinking one doesn't suddenly turn into a punk because there's a punk on the bench, or in the clubhouse. But you never know. Some guys have underlying tendencies, and if he's going to be making big bucks, that sends a message. Whatever it is he does and says sends a message to a lot of people. And he didn't endear himself to baseball by saying the worst possible thing in a World Series game. He says, it's not in my DNA to hustle. Now, it's a World Series game. It's not in his DNA to hustle. He's going to have to I don't think New York's going to sign him. Just for the reasons you mentioned, that young infield, if they can keep them together, if they can bear it out until DD comes back, hopefully with full range, that's going to last them 5-7 years.
Yeah.
And today's day and age, that's a long time.
Well, what's going to be interesting, when whoever signs Machado, the thing to look for is when they play the Brewers again, whatever team Machado is on, they might come after him. And I don't blame them, if a pitcher come out there and just, threw at him. Oh. Because what he did to that Brewer first baseman, that was a cheap shot. That's inexcusable.
Right, and to back it up with the remark that you can't hustle because it's in your DNA and you're playing in the World Series. Forget that. I don't think the Dodgers want him back.
No, I haven't. I've heard maybe the Phillies and some other teams, but right now, all you hear is so many rumors, so you don't know what's going on.
Okay. Hey, let's have a little fun. You posted some pictures from the 1960 Yankee yearbook. You did that on Facebook, and it really brought back some memories. Some of the guys you don't even think of as being Yankees, but one of them was Bobby Shantz, and if I'm not mistaken, that was a picture you posted a week or two ago. Tell me about what your memories are of him, or what you understand to be true. Because you're a little young. You're a little young. I gotta tell you.
No, but the thing is, Ralph, I've met Bobby Shantz a couple times at a Yankee Fan Fest in the early '90s, and I met him at a show in Pennsylvania. And he used to have like a bowling alley, and he would work behind the counter. And some of the fans would get autographs, and the one little kid said, why is the hot dog guy signing autographs?
People wouldn't recognize. He's a slight of build man. I was about to say young man, and he was in '60 by comparison, but his career was winding down. And the Yankees were famous for signing guys just like the Celtics. They'd sign guys like Wayne Embry, Carl Braun. Big stars at one time in the NBA, but in the last year or two. And it would bolster their bench, and you get experience and what have you. The Yankees signed a bunch of people like that, a bunch of pitchers like that. One of them is a Facebook friend. His daughter is a Facebook friend of mine, and I'm gonna get her someday as a guest on one of these shows. Virgil Trucks, who was a super pitcher with Detroit in the '50s, came to the Yankees late in his career. And another guy that comes to mind is Sal Magley.
The barber.
The barber, right? He became, I think, the first pitcher to pitch for all three New York teams. I know he went from the Giants to Cleveland first, maybe, and then to the Dodgers, or maybe the Dodgers and then Cleveland, and ended up in Yankee Stadium. And there is one picture of him in pinstripes. Remember, I was a New York Giant fan, and it was kind of a, how do I say the word? A mindfuck when they traded him to the Dodgers. And I don't remember, again, if it was the Dodgers first or Cleveland first, but to see him in a Dodger uniform was weird. And then years after that, to see him in a Yankee picture, a picture of him, obviously taken from very, very low. He's up on the pitching mound, and he's just glaring. And it was vintage Sal Magley. And
well, if you remember, Ralph, he pitched Game 5 of the '56 series when Larson had the perfect game.
I didn't remember that, but if I'm not mistaken, he had a no-hitter with the Dodgers as well. Either that or a key victory. I have another picture somewhere of him being carried off by Campy and someone else, and I think he pitched an iconic game that caused that. Yeah, the barber was something else. And as one of my podcasts, I can't even think who it was, earlier in the week, we were talking about Magley. He was what they call a Mexican jumping bean. Must have been Hal Bach that I was talking to. There was a league in Mexico, the Mexican League, that rated in the late 40s a bunch of players. Max Lanier was one, Sal Magley was one. And for a while, they were banned from organized baseball when and couldn't go further. There was a big lawsuit, and Magley learned to be a pitcher in the Mexican League. He was a hard-throwing guy, but he learned some, junk balls, a little off-speed stuff to complement that fastball, and he came back and did very well with the Giants, both in 51 and 54. Vintage years for me as a kid.
Well, if you remember, Ralph, they even tried to get Phil Rizzuto to go to Mexico.
Ooh, I did not remember that.
Well, the Hall of Fame speech, the Scooter said, he talked to his wife, Cora, and Cora says, well, if you go, you're going without me.
Another bright Yankee wife. I can think when you said that, Cora, I remember how Yogi's wife, Carmen, would run the show business-wise and socially and everything else. She was a very, very bright woman who, if you might remember, was when Susan, the announcer for Waldman wanted to get Yogi and Steinbrenner back together. She didn't go to him. She went to her first.
Yeah.
And because he was bright enough to give up control along those lines.
Well, I was down Yogi's Museum in Montclair. I went down to see the Jackals play. And I was in the museum, and I heard, Carmen was in the back, and she was singing, you remember when Marilyn Monroe sang the President Kennedy Happy? And,
yes.
And she was, doing an imitation of her singing to Yogi.
Oh,
and,
wow.
It was, I heard it. I didn't see her, but I could hear it.
Very cool. Absolutely cool. As a matter of fact, I saw a Kennedy documentary on CNN last night, and that didn't. Maybe it was the night before, but either way, that song sung by Marilyn didn't particularly impress Jackie.
No.
Well, she was funny that way. Some women are picky. They'll tear you apart no matter what you do.
Well, I know. It's crazy. Well, Ralph, down here in Tampa, I lived on a street. It was Kennedy Boulevard.
Whoa.
And JFK rode down that street, and they named it after him. And the next day, he got killed in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that,
I didn't realize he went from Tampa to Dallas.
Yeah.
It was straight, wow.
It was either the day or 2 days before, but he went down that street, and until this day, they call it Kennedy Boulevard, and then he flew to Dallas, and, well, you can get Jack O'Hallahan will tell you that story.
Well, wow, that's, he did tell that story. We argued on these airwaves, Jack, happens to be the son of Anastasia. Big mafia guy. big mafia guy in my day. And he's got some interesting stories. I don't agree with him on his idea that the Secret Service man, the driver, turned around and shot him.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, a lot of things he says are very interesting. He happened to be a world-class boxer, a contender, fought Norton, was about to fight Ali. Most interesting guy. He starred in Superman, or co-starred in Superman, played football, was on the Jets taxi squad for a while, when I think maybe even when they were the Titans.
Yeah.
So he's an interesting interview. I don't quite agree with him on that, but I got to ask you if there's a J.D. Tippett Boulevard in Tampa.
No.
I took a shot. I would have had a scoop if there was, huh?
No, well, there's some more news, Ralph, on the Rays Stadium, and the news is there's no news yet. They don't have anybody. There's nothing going on now. They only got a month to go.
So this is a perfect example of no news is not always good news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Ralph, they're going to have 28,000 seats. And could you imagine if they get it, which I don't think they will, what the price of the ticket is going to be?
Whoa. Yes. This would interest Peter Golenbach, as you know. The A's have a very similar situation out here. They're supposed to find out by the end of the year which location, if there's anything firm. They're dealing with the city and the county of Alameda County. So it can be very difficult for a fan whose team may be playing in Montreal, Charlotte, Cucamonga.
Yeah.
You never know. And
well,
I think that's cheating the fans. If I were a 9-year-old kid now and I was about to lose my team, it would remind me of being a 9, 10-year-old kid when I lost the New York Giants baseball team.
Well, here's something else to consider, Ralph. I mean, say here the Rays. They're in the same division as the Red Sox and the Yankees. I mean, if they went to some other city, you get those two teams in there 18 times a year, you've got 800. You got 800,000 to 1 million fans just for those games. And, I mean, you're going to have a team in Tampa when the attendance is less than 30,000.
Right. And same thing with the A's. As a matter of fact, the A's, I have a theory. They just took on the Las Vegas franchise as their AAA team. And the Mets moved back east. They're in Syracuse. Makes sense for both teams. My point is they've already lost the Raiders to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And Oakland has lost every franchise. They've negotiated not in good faith. And they've gotten screwed a couple of times by Al Davis and whatnot. They just don't do well in keeping their clubs. I could see that Las Vegas coming in. They've already got rights to the city, and boom, they're gone.
Look what they did to the hockey team out there. You got the hockey team's a big success, and if the Raiders are a big success, I don't think it's too long before you'll have a baseball team out there.
The hockey team happens to be, I'm not that big a sports fan anymore. I mean, basically it's baseball for me. But, you got to keep your head in. That Las Vegas team, an expansion team, did they win the Cup or make the playoffs?
They got to the finals.
Yeah, okay, they got to the finals. And an expansion team getting to the finals. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. Some good scouting and something good scouting in the sense they could scout the intangibles because that's what's important in hockey. Can a guy dig the puck out of the corner, this, that, and the other thing? Can he back check? Can he forecheck? I wish there were more time in my life for hockey.
Well, I'll tell you, Ralph, if you see it live, you'd appreciate it much more.
Oh, I grew up in Madison Square Garden.
Okay, so I don't have to tell you.
No, you don't. And but it doesn't play well on TV. I've never been able to get, even when they had Peter Puck.
Yeah, I remember Peter Puck.
Right?
Yeah.
It just is not a TV sport. But we've had a good podcast this week. Degraw's Yankees. It sounds good, doesn't it?
Well, I hope I can live up to it, because anytime with Yankees, it's you got a lot of pressure on you.
Absolutely. And there's just a lot of pressure playing in Tampa, doing podcasts from Tampa for some reason. Every podcaster says that.
Yeah.
If you could podcast from Tampa, you could podcast anywhere.
That's right.
All right. Jack, thank you. We will be back again next week. And if you would manage to stay healthy, it wouldn't hurt my feelings.
Well, that sounds good, Ralph. And maybe by next week I might remember that Japanese pitcher's name.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right.
It's Yasi Kachuka. Well, I just think I started an international incident. So
I remember the Rangers had a Kachuk or.
Oh yeah, Walter Kachuk.
Walter, boy, you have a good memory. You fit right in with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
Well, I'm a big Ranger fan too, Ralph. So.
Bathgate, Ingerfield, and Prentice. That was the line I grew up watching as a kid. That was the number one line.
Well, I remember Gilbert, Hatfield, and Rattel.
Yes. That was a few years later, and that was I guess I got started in earnest right about 64, 65. They came into their own.
And Ralph, the first hockey book I got was Goal, about Rod Gilbert and Hal Bach.
Oh, wow.
I've got it right here in a box.
Well, not this Tuesday, but a Tuesday soon. We'll prepare a hockey show, and you come on. Hal would be delighted to talk hockey with you.
Well, I'd love to talk to him, because that's the first hockey book I got, and I paid $1.95 for it.
Well, let me tell you then a hockey story of autographs, because you and I are both into it, and it didn't escape me while we were talking about Bobby Shantz, that you sent me a Bobby Shantz autograph.
Okay.
So I thank you for that again. But in, I guess it was 64, I was about 15 or 16, and we just haunt Madison Square Garden, my friends and I. Knicks basketball, hockey at night, we watch them change the floor,
That's great.
All that, loved it. And one day I'm hanging outside, and I just happened to buy a Ranger Blue Book. That was their yearbook.
Yep.
And we had a hard time getting Ranger autographs, because we couldn't go down to the hotel to get them, because they lived in New York and they'd come in just for the game and this, that, and the other thing. I'm standing there thumbing through my Ranger Blue Book, and a guy named Val Fontaine, a penalty killer.
The fighter.
Wow. I am very impressed with that. He was Camille Henry's partner on killing penalties. And I said to him, I said, Mr. Fontaine, a little high kid's voice, I've got this book. If I gave you my address, could you get guys to sign it and send it to me? My God, the guy goes into the locker room with the book. And I really didn't know. He might sign it, get one or two guys. Everybody, including Jacques Plante, except for Villemire, the backup goalie, was either in the minors at the time,
Delamure, yeah.
Yeah, you are absolutely amazing. Yeah, Halbach's going to love you because Halbach worked for the Rangers for a while when he got out of college, and he befriended Gilbert, obviously with the book. So he's, I can't wait for you to meet him because you can talk hockey to him better than the panelists on the regular panelists. Because go ahead,
Ralph. They're the nicest, most down-to-earth people you ever want to meet as hockey players.
Okay, now let me cut
you
you
off
because
fantastic.
I'm up against the time here. This thing records it. We'll continue this next week. Thank you, Jack.
Okay, Ralph.
Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's a great new podcast, Yankee podcast, Degraw's Yankees, and you can tell I got a top-notch guy. Be well, my friend. See you next week.
Thanks a lot, Ralph. Appreciate it.
Adios.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.